Welcome in to This Week in Bitcoin, episode 97. My name is Chris, ChrisLAS.com, JupiterBroadcasting.com. Well, today's episode is way off format. You got to have fun every now and then. I think this is really the episode 100 party. So that way episode 100 is all about business, like the show's supposed to be. And this is where we have the fun. So today we're going to talk about node management in 2026. And to do that, I have a couple of my unplugged buddies with me. Hello, Wes.
Hello.
Hello, Brent.
Hello there.
Hello, you two. So all three of us are node operators. Wes, you probably have some of the most experience just because you play around with it for hours. And then I have probably the most amount of nodes.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, Brent, you probably have some of the most early experience. You have ran a node. You also have AlbiHub. So you're kind of in that kind of maybe where some of the audience is at.
It's a nice way of saying the least experience.
We're trying to represent like the full spectrum on this episode.
Yeah, you guys kind of got into it early over in office hours when my node was just a twinkle in my eye.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that fateful day.
The early days of Umbrel. In fact, that was one of our tasks that we'll talk about later is we had to rescue an old Umbrel node. And I think we should start by acknowledging there's a lot of ways to run a node. Of course, you can run a Bitcoin node just about on any machine that has enough hard drive space. But these days, you might also want to run a Lightning set up on top of that. And so this segment's going to assume you already have a node of some kind. Maybe it's AlbiHub, LND, Core Lightning. And then some of the deeper stuff we're going to get into down the road might require you have AlbiHub set up in a certain way if you're going to use AlbiHub, but most of it should be applicable to just about everybody. And the thing is there's a lot that is new in 2026 when it comes to managing a Bitcoin node. A lot has changed in the last few months. A lot of it is API driven. A lot of it is more programmable. And a whole lot of things are very agent friendly now. And that is one of the big shifts in 2026. Anybody who listens to this show, you probably know you should be running a node. So the question really isn't, should I run a node? It's, how do you properly run a node? What can your node talk to? How does your node get authenticated to? What's allowed to talk to your node? How do you monitor how your node is doing? And how do you keep an agent, if you want to deploy one, from getting too clever with your scarce money? This is the new stack we need to talk about. It's not just wallets and dashboards anymore. It's APIs, credentials, setting budgets for agents, event monitoring, and then guardrails. And when you put all of this together, it is not only a really fun stack, it's an extremely powerful stack that can nearly be automated to run itself. So I think we should start with Bitcoin Core and kind of talk about maybe what we could describe as the API ladder here. So you still need Bitcoin Core. It's the foundation of running your node, and it's the boring and it's the right answer. It's there. It's because it offers a couple of primitives that some of the tools will rely on, like a JSON RPC for control.
Yeah, indeed. You'll see that on a lot of tools actually around here. It does look like you can find some supporting programs, like talking via that JSON RPC. You'll find like a Bitcoin Prometheus exporter, which we can get more into later. So a lot of things we'll talk through that. There's also a common pattern with JSON RPC because you're doing RPC like remote procedure call, right? So you're kind of sending commands over the network, and it happens to be sent with JSON instead of something like XML in the old days. And so a common pattern you'll see is sort of like implementing some kind of proxy or manager that can implement even more trust on top, depending on what the actual daemon underneath implements. So you can maybe filter like commands that can do changes on your node versus read-only reporting commands.
Yeah, and so when you get Bitcoin D going and you've got the JSON RPC, you're gonna get a source of truth for what's the chain sync at, what's the mempool state, what's your wallet state, and what's your disk usage, what's the index health, all of these things, notification hooks and things like that.
Yeah, the other part is, it kind of just provides the base info layer if you're going to build other things on top, especially if you're going to have a Lightning node on top, which needs to get all of that underlying chain data.
Right. So then the next thing is the Lightning node, and this really gives you, well, what some people would describe as the machine interface story. But it's another way of saying when you get a Lightning node, there's a lot of tools available for agent integration.
Well, right. So, I mean, a lot of that has to do with just Lightning versus like base layer on-chain Bitcoin, right? Like there's a lot of programmability and ways you can interface with the chain, but that's the kind of primary thing you pay attention to is like, what new blocks got mined, what got added onto, what transactions did that come with, And Lightning is a whole other beast of a layer 2 on top. And kind of by its nature, it has new and different things to pay attention to, including invoices and liquidity and channels. And it comes with a lot of state that isn't on a blockchain, or at least is sort of, not yet on the blockchain or only accounted for at sort of larger, less granular levels. And then you're going to need extra observability on top.
And LND, and you can do it also with Core Lightning, they have something called a gRPC. What's a gRPC, Wes?
Yeah, so this is another format for doing remote procedure calls. And this is one that kind of developed out its protobuf at the base. It came out of a lot of stuff that Google had been doing for their own sort of internal calls. You'll also see a lot of REST APIs. You'll see things called macaroons, which are essentially just tokens you need security, private key type credentials that allow you to authenticate to your node.
And scope. So you can have macaroons that are scoped to certain permissions only, like read-only permissions or only certain things on that node.
Yeah, and that comes down to the individual daemon. Like this is one area where if you run a Core Lightning node, by default, they don't have that kind of granularity built into their macaroon setup, but on LND, you get that out of the box and you can bake your own macaroons with custom access controls if you want. So that's where Core Lightning has the JSON RPC interface. And so what's done kind of more over there in that community is often like a proxy or some kind of control that only allows certain RPC commands to go through.
All right, have we lost you at all, Brent?
Well, it seems to me like the distinction I can find here is that Bitcoin is like the super stable base that doesn't change very often. And then with Lightning on top, there's a bunch of playing around going on there and just a lot of flexibility as well. Did I get any of that right?
You got it. And then they're both giving you a set of different APIs or remote procedure calls that you can use. And the reason why we're harping on this and kind of establishing this base is because this is what you're going to build on top of to manage your node going forward.
And it makes sense to kind of get an idea of what that API surface is because like some of them are, closing or opening channels, which commits your real on-chain Bitcoin to things. And some of them are just like getting some info in a JSON format that you can use to update a dashboard. And those are totally different implications.
And if you have like LND right now, it's built in. And if you have Bitcoin D, it's built in. This RPC is already available. It might not be exposed to the network, but it's available. But let's clear up something before we go any further. Because you've mentioned it a couple of times. I've mentioned it a couple of times. There's LND and there's Core Lightning. What's the difference?
Yeah, well, they're both just different implementations of the Lightning Network protocols. So they're, kind of like with email or other systems, you can have different daemons that both speak the same protocol.
Or on Bitcoin, we have Bitcoin Core and Knots.
Exactly, yeah. So that's the same thing here. So LND is a Go version, and they've kind of like, it's like all in one. It's very comprehensive. It has support for like a lot of just like detailed APIs on a large surface area and does a lot of things well. Core Lightning, the core part is kind of the key. It's like really meant to just do the really like tight, minimal essentials of what you need, the really hard parts of like the actual network protocol and doing that safely and securely.
And you extend it with modules.
Yeah. And so it has like a plugin system that you can just run any binary. It talks like standard IO kind of style. And so you can extend it with these plugins. And that's actually where like how KeySend is implemented. And even internally, a lot of the features that you get out of the box are actually just modules or plugins of some kind of extensibility feature outside of the true core. So that enables some things to happen earlier. Like they had Bolt 12 support pretty early on, that kind of stuff. So a lot of experimental things can get developed.
Right. It's easier to add.
Yes. But it can be a little more do-it-yourself or less out of the box for a node operator standpoint.
Yeah, I will say I think a lot of community how-tos and scripts and services kind of expect you to have LND.
Yeah. Compatibility is also not as good. For instance, like AlbiHub is not nearly as easy to get going on top of a Core Lightning node as it is with an LND node.
Let's talk about AlbiHub because that's one more wrinkle, and then I think we've got the groundwork laid here. AlbiHub is software that you can install that includes its own Lightning node, or you can run it on top of your existing Lightning node, or, one more or, there is the AlbiHub Cloud product. That's the least flexible, but probably the most appliance-like is AlbiHub Cloud. And then the next would be the entire AlbiHub package that includes its own Lightning configuration and daemon.
Yeah, it uses a thing called the Lightning Development Kit or LDK, which is saying contains a bunch of the base primitives, and then AlbiHub wraps that so it can be its own node using that library built in, or it can talk to a bunch of different node backends, including LND, or it can even talk to another node sort of backend with Nostr Wallet Connect.
And some of the fun stuff we're going to get into later does kind of require that you're on LND or Core Lightning and not using their built-in Lightning. Some of it. Let's talk about some
What,
of the
you're
stuff.
saying self-hosting's more fun? What are you talking about?
Well, you even depending on no matter what version of AlbiHub, if you have AlbiHub, you are already kind of set up with Nostr Wallet Connect. And that's very powerful just on its own. It's a standard way for apps and services to talk to Lightning Wallet, to your Lightning Wallet over Nostr. And it's pretty simple. You're seeing more and more adoption in different applications. Fountain recently shipped it, so you can use Fountain's built-in wallet, or you can connect it to your AlbiHub wallet using Nostr Wallet Connect. And a lot of the apps that ship today give you permissions to make a payment, receive a payment, and they let you set strict budgets and have scoped permissions as part of the Nostr Wallet Connect protocol, or I guess spec.
Yeah, and the basic idea, right, is it provides a way for you to encrypt and then can send encrypted commands and get results back over Nostr relays to talk to your node. So you can have an app or an interface of some kind on whatever machine you're on and your node somewhere else, and instead of having to make a direct connection or do a direct API call, you let the Nostr network take care of it.
And really, honestly, that might be all you need, because there are command line interfaces and MCPs that Albi makes available, and an agent can interact with that. And if you just want to do basic payments and check balances and set budgets, you might be set with just AlbiHub and Nostr Wallet Connect and a CLI.
Yeah, so you get info, get balance, make invoice, pay invoice, multi-pay invoice, pay key send, lookup invoice, and list transactions, at least in the base sort of Nostr Wallet Connect API surface. That's where maybe if you want to do fancier stuff in terms of like complicated node management and liquidity management and rebalancing, that won't be sufficient. But for a lot of the day-to-day stuff, maybe even a lot of automations or agent stuff, that's a pretty decent interface.
So what we've got here, you've got Bitcoin Core, then you've got Lightning with a couple of different implementation options, including AlbiHub in there. And then you've got the APIs that these different services provide that have always been there, but perhaps you've never really been using them. And now there's tooling that makes them extremely powerful and makes things that maybe were too complicated or took too much time to set up very straightforward. So that's the foundation you need to understand. And now, here's how you can start to take advantage of them. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit right here. You could just use OpenCode. Learn to love OpenCode, and it is one of the biggest practical unlocks for node operations. You can install it locally on your workstation and point it at configs and scripts. You can have it SSH into your remote node and put it in plan mode at first, have it learn the system, then come back and propose changes before it touches anything. And we did this with a couple of nodes. Brent's had a very old Umbrel node from the very early days of Umbrel.
Yeah, years ago.
On
Years
a
ago.
VPS.
Mm-hmm.
Worst
And
case.
it kind of broke at one point. We said, we got to get around to fixing that. And then every time I would visit, we'd say, we should probably get around to fixing that. And then a couple of years went by.
Yeah,
but you guys fixed it recently, right?
Yeah, so we had this VPS and we thought, we'll also run IPFS on this thing.
Yeah.
Port conflicts happened, took down the Lightning node and just messed things up. But we wanted to get those channels back up. And so in, probably 15 minutes, OpenCode was able to assess the problem, disable the right services, restart things, and then continually monitor the Lightning server and make sure things were coming back up. And it noticed, your VPS is running out of RAM. We could make these adjustments. It's really great like that. We also had an Umbrel script that was broken on an old install, and it recovered that. It's also really fantastic at verifying if you're waiting for your services to start and you don't know, is Lightning starting or not? It can go in and it knows where to check and tell you what's going on. OpenCode can be a fantastic tool that can take advantage of not only things on the file system, but also these APIs.
Yeah, I mean, you can get into like finer grained work, but even just as a default, and you should be careful, and we can get into the safety part of this, but right, like even just the base commands, you run like a get info command on your Lightning node, that often spits out like a JSON blob that it's not hard for the human to read, but it's not really what we're best at, and it is what these things are best at, And so it can present that in a nice little table for you to check out. It can call out things that might look like an error, or just report on the status of like, nope, we're still waiting to catch up with the blockchain.
Yeah, you're at block height this, and by like one of the things I love is you're at this block height, and by observing so far, I estimate it'll be another half hour before sync is complete.
Nice.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But let's touch on safety, because you do need to be careful. There's plan mode. It is helpful. it's permissions that really matter. So if the agent is logging in, it's logging in with whatever that user has access to, whatever wallet that user has access to. You need to be really careful there.
And that's where something like you were trying to play with is writing some sort of pre-made agent scripts and wrappers that you can supply with like their own macaroon style or like whatever auth, password, etc. stuff that is injected in there, and then they just have access to that.
Yeah, exactly. So we could talk more about Boltz in a minute, but my LNCLI and Boltz commands are wrapped exactly like you say, with just certain protections in there, and they're designed so there's like Boltz, and then each Lightning node has a Boltz- host name, and that is scoped only to that host with only those commands. And that way, there's less work or speculation an agent or a tool like OpenCode has to do.
And then, especially with LND, like you can give them, some of them could just have the read-only macaroon, some could have the full commands, maybe gated with special instructions that require more of your, input or authorization. And you can like make a custom one if you needed to, so that it could only do a couple of changing commands. Like you can make payments, but not X.
So, and sticking with the repair and using OpenCode thing for one moment too, I will just say, before you have it move out of plan mode into build mode, ask it to create a spec.md and review that with your human eyeballs before it works, and make sure that's what you want done.
And really, I mean, I think both you and I, including with Brent, have had nodes kind of repaired or rescued with this.
I think 3 is the count. Two that were significantly down for the count.
I specifically remember rescuing nodes with you, Chris, before, these agent times.
Yeah, back when we were first learning Umbrel.
It was one of your most hated mornings when you would come into the studio and sit down and be like, oh, the node went down. Okay.
Again.
I got to set aside 3 hours to try to dive into this and figure out what's going on. And you'd figure it out, which is great, but 15 minutes versus 3 hours. I think we've advanced.
I know. It really is so much better now. The tooling is so much better.
I had an issue where I was trying to plug in that was doing some automated fee management for my node. But as part of that, it was occasionally opening channels it thought would help my network, like reachability and stuff. But it kind of ran into an issue where it tried to open some channels, but like the fee rate was too low, so they were never going to actually open. And then it kind of got into a loop where it just kept doing that.
Oh, no.
So I had several hundred like phantom channels that were never going to open.
Yeah.
And so these kinds of automation tools were super useful. And exactly, like I could draft a plan with the exact specific IDs so I could make sure I was like not going to touch channels I knew I still wanted to keep or anything like that. Very helpful.
Do you recall, did you use OpenCode to take care of that?
No, I think this was a little before I was into OpenCode, but I used some Crush and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was mostly Crush.
Yeah, so if you take nothing else from this, like just use what we've talked about so far with OpenCode. However, really, the thing I think would be ideal is to automate this a level further, to make this even smoother. It is 2026. It is the year of the agents, after all. Now, I suppose we'll really be talking in the context of OpenClaw, but this would really work with just about any kind of agent, from the Claudes to the whatevers. And it's stacking everything we've talked about and really turning it into something that's effective for you, that gives you actionable information, and maybe even helps you save sats off of your node. Because that's one thing, I think if you have a Lightning node, you're using it, you can sometimes collect some sats on there. It can sit there for too long. It's a hot wallet. You should be getting them off there, but it takes time.
That's my wallet.
Yeah. Yeah, mine too. So that's something I wanted to fix.
This is really an intervention episode.
Right. Yeah.
I feel called out.
Yeah. So there's 2 areas really that I wanted to address, and that was, I guess, 3. I wanted to be able to check the balance of my node from my agent. I wanted to be able to send a quick payment, and I wanted to be able to swap or sweep sats that are sitting on my node in my hot wallet to a liquid wallet, because that's sort of my intermediary step before I go to cold storage. And a lot of this is relying on these APIs we just talked about. And then one more quintessential killer piece of software that we all love. We've talked about it before, Boltz. But not in the way you're used to using it. So before we go any further, quick explainer of what Boltz is. Boltz is a non-custodial swap service that lets you move between a Bitcoin layer to like a Lightning or Liquid layer or in between any of those without having to give up your custody. It's a clean way to move sats between Lightning or on-chain or Liquid when maybe your node needs a little rebalancing. So you can use it in the context of your node too.
Yeah. For us, it's often an issue, kind of depending on how you run your node. Like if you're a merchant, it's going to be one issue. If you're trying to run a routing node, it's another target.
If you're just trying to zap or something.
Right. And for us, we often get stuff sent to us very generously from the boost.
A boost.
And so we often need to then rebalance to push sats back out so we maintain enough liquidity to receive new boosts.
Right. And they need to have sending liquidity and all of that.
And so Bolt is one service that's been really helpful to do that. And one of the mechanisms they offer is what's called a reverse submarine swap. And it's actually kind of really neat and clever. And the kind of high-level version is you on your end generate a pre-image, so like a random value, and then you hash that and you send that to Bolt. And then it creates the swap sort of based around that. So it's first able to make a special kind of Lightning invoice called a hold invoice, which when you pay it, it doesn't actually like fully lock your sats. They're kind of in an intermediate HTLC state because it's waiting for like the actual reveal of the pre-image before it does anything. So you kind of like stash your sats there, but in a way that you can recover them. And then once Bolt sees you've done that first step, it'll make a corresponding sort of staged contract on whatever base chain you're using. So it could be on-chain or in our case, usually Liquid. But that's also waiting for a pre-image. And so the way it works is once that's done and you see that that is locked up temporarily, then you can finally reveal the pre-image, which lets you claim the Liquid, and the Liquid sent to whatever wallet ID you put in at the start. And then because you had to reveal on the Liquid chain the pre-image to get it back for yourself, that lets Bolts then claim that Lightning transaction and then they get paid out. And so at no time are you at risk of like actually losing the custody, but at the end you get to execute this whole smart contract sort of transaction cross-chain stuff that will ultimately do the swap for you.
And it's super powerful because not only can you use it to say take hot sats off of a hot wallet, but you could use it maybe to balance liquidity in a channel. You can have a Liquid wallet running on the node because Bolt offers for nodes Bolt D and Bolt CLI. And this is something you install. Some packages for Umbrel and Start9 include Bolts with them, but it's a command line tool you can install on your workstation, and it's a command line tool you can install on your server as well as a daemon that will run, and it talks to Lightning, and it also creates its own API.
Yeah, exactly. So Bolts D runs, it talks to your Lightning server, and it supports both LND and Core Lightning. Bolts actually run both of those on their network, which is pretty great. And then on top, so Bolts D has its own API you can call from your own tools to interact with it, or it comes with the Bolts client CLI tool, which will just do that for you.
Yeah.
Which is pretty handy. And then what's nice about Bolts D is like that little, like, state machine we just walked through. It's kind of a lot. Like if you go look, you can do it. They provide SDKs if you want to do it programmatically in your own client. But like there's some crypto stuff to get right and like make sure you do the right order and account for possible failures. So Bolts D kind of wraps that into a more manageable interface.
And this is really where it gets great in 2026 because Lightning's no longer this thing that you have to have in a particular app or in a web page. Your agent can now inspect your node. It can pay for an invoice. It can swap liquidity around. It can sweep sats to your Lightning wallet. And the killer combo here is Bolt D and Bolt CLI with a skill that your agent follows to interact with it appropriately. And it works. So today, I have moved about 250,000 sats from my primary node to my Liquid wallet just through Telegram by prompting my agent.
That's so great. And so the idea here is you like sort of pre-put in, here's like the address I want you to send it to, which is a Liquid wallet you control.
So when I saw it, I made it really simple. So I say sweep 50,000 sats to Liquid. And if I don't supply a wallet, it comes back and it asks me for the wallet address. And then when I give it the wallet address, it gives me all, well, before it asks for the wallet address, when I just say sweep 50,000 sats to Liquid, it comes back with a fee estimate. Here's what it's going to cost. Here's the Bolts fee. Here's all of that. So you'll get exactly this amount in your Liquid wallet. If you're ready, send me the address and say yes or whatever. And so I give it the address, and then it does it all in the back end. Follows the skill that I created, which I will publish in the show notes. And then it does the swap. So the skill is about probably about 60, 70% complete. But if people would like to take it and work with it, so far I've managed to make sure I can inspect the channels. I can get my entire node balance on chain and Lightning, and I can do the sats to liquid sweep, and it all works fantastically. And there's other things, obviously, I want to do inevitably with that, but that's a pretty good start. If you just want to be able to check on your node through an agent, and I'm using OpenClaw, but it would work with OpenCode, it would work with Claude, any agent.
I have a question here about security practices, I guess. You guys are always saying, don't throw your API keys into a bunch of your prompts. How does it feel about putting wallet, node addresses and things like that into some of these prompts and letting these agents go wild?
Yeah, I mean, you should definitely think about what you're going to put on there, what you're going to let it access and control, and what provider you're sending it to.
Yeah, there's that. And I suppose if you're really paranoid about this, Venice AI offers a lot of good solutions. And so does Paperquery?
Oh, yeah.
That also offers some privacy there. The only thing that's really getting exposed in this process is the public Liquid Receive wallet address. Otherwise, all of the credentials, all of that stuff's not in what I'm prompting to my agent in this case.
Yeah. Now there would be more when you get a channel status or whatever, but a lot of that ends up being scraped and sort of revealed on the network discovery tools.
Yeah, it'll give me channel ID information in the prompt, but that you could just get off of Amboss. So it's not that bad. And that is also being able to just see the status of my channels, where they're at, where if it's on the send or receive side, extremely useful. And then if you have multiple nodes you're managing like I do, it really is a force multiplier. And then you combine that with the capability of bolts, and there's also LNCLI, which I've also wrapped. It really is a powerful agent combination.
There's also, actually, we were talking about Alby, but separately, they just make a lot of great tools along with Alby Hub itself.
Yeah.
And so they have made a pair of tools, a CLI and an MCP server, for basically being able to talk Nostr Wallet Connect to a node. So if you don't want to sort of do a direct wrapper, but you do want your agent to be able to use Nostr Wallet Connect, you can use the Alby Nostr Wallet Connect CLI, for instance, as an easy way for the agent to be able to do that, but without you having to do a lot of the plumbing.
Yeah, that is really, we should we'll put links in the show notes because they do have some really good stuff. So the real unlock though for me this week was the sweep to my Liquid wallet. Just something that I can, something that's not a huge deal, but it is so nice to just have it done.
Well, it kind of changes the task, right? Before it felt like a serious task you wanted to do seriously.
Yeah, sit down and think about it. Yeah.
So it'd be let me go to the node. I will assess the state of the channels and liquidity, come up with my own plan to then go try to pull some sats off of here. And now you can have a whole other pair of eyes who can pull fresh info from the node and help you do it and second guess what you're doing.
And in some ways, having it done programmatically where the addresses of the wallet you want to go to are soft coded in this case, but better than the human who hasn't slept, for 4 nights or whatever. So in some ways, it might be more reliable than you doing it manually.
Well, especially because the flow I've done often, right, is especially it's between my phone and the computer, and I'm copying exact IDs that need to be exact to get the money to send to the right place, right? So it's not really the kind of thing you want to screw up.
And you know what I can do now too? One of the times I tried to sweep to Liquid, it didn't work because I didn't have enough outbound liquidity. And now I can say, why did that fail? And the agent figures out, well, this channel didn't, but you might be able to send it out this channel if you pin it. And it comes back with recommendations and actionable suggestions on how to actually get that payment out. So I can actually say, so why did the payment fail? And actually get information without having to dig through logs and all of that. It's great. You need to keep an eye on things, though. You need to monitor that stack. And like we've been mentioning, these APIs, they give you the ability to do just that. Bitcoin D, LND, Core Lightning, they all offer the ability to monitor them and expose metrics. And one of the ways you can do this is through Prometheus.
Yeah, I mean, it's really become, of course, pretty much a metrics standard out there, even if you don't use Prometheus itself as a tool. All kinds of different telemetry options, both on the client and the server side, support it. So there's Bitcoin Prometheus Exporter for Bitcoin D, and a lot of these even come with, say, a starter Grafana dashboard you can use in conjunction.
And LND has LND Mon, which is a side project that is still a really easy way to get information from your LND node that you want to monitor. You can see things like invoice flow, channel health, forwarding behavior, peer status, how the RPC is doing. And that's which is also really good if you want to make sure your agent can talk to it.
Yeah, right. That's how a lot of these tools end up working is like they will go make the calls, like the limited set of calls to go just collect data and expose that in the Prometheus metrics format.
And it is really, really straightforward to task the agent to build a Prometheus scrape on this information. Core Lightning kind of has a built-in system here, which is really nice, right? Their plugin you can just get, I guess built-in is...
Yeah, it uses the built-in plugin systems, and it's in the sort of not official, but sort of official sort of like list of community plugins, and it seems pretty well rated.
Yeah, whereas with LND, you do need to have LND Mon. But either you get that plugin or you get LND Mon, and now you can monitor with Grafana and Prometheus. Prometheus pulls the stats, Grafana visualizes them. And you can get pretty far. And if you install Mempool Space, which a lot of us have on our node, that also exposes a series of API endpoints that can tell you things about the network state, like the current fees, transaction status, the block height, mempool conditions in general from your node's perspective. Essentially, all the information about the Bitcoin network that Mempool is aware of can be exposed as Grafana endpoints around that.
I think that's a good wider point too, is there's already a lot of good software and dashboards and ways to surface info around node management. And a lot of them end up having or using under the hood APIs that you can tap into, like with Mempool or Ride the Lightning or a lot of these things.
So I'm now scraping all the data with Prometheus. And then with Grafana, it pulls that data out of Prometheus and it builds me my own custom dashboard. So I now have a dashboard that shows me what block height I'm at, how my node is doing, the memory usage, the disk space usage, the active Lightning channels, how my inbound versus outbound capacity is doing, how many sats I've received in the last 24 hours. It's one Grafana dashboard that's pulling the data from Bitcoin daemon, from Lightning daemon, all of it, and then into Prometheus, and then one dashboard. One panel to view it all, to make sure everything's up. And then with that, you can also base alerts.
Which is also nice since you can now kind of separate things. You don't have to go log into software where you might be able to do both read and write actions. You can just pop open a dashboard and get a sense of what's going on.
And I actually think it's almost more important. I'm not a dashboard stan at all. But if you will, it might be more important than ever. Because if you're tasking agents to do more stuff, it's probably a good idea to keep an eye on things and have some alerting built in. And so that's why I'm really kind of saying now is the time. I've had other reasons in the past why I really need to have monitoring set up, but that sort of was like the last, like, you got to do this. And this is such a great system now, because a lot of just the day-to-day tasks, the agent can monitor and manage for me. And then when I still need visibility, I've got it through Grafana and Prometheus monitoring.
I just have to say this because it's who I am now, but for some of our nodes, we've been using Nix Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that really makes a lot of the stuff really easy to integrate as well.
Yeah. Well,
and the agents can just sort of spin it up in a declarative way for you.
Yeah, like I just tell the agent, go turn on Prometheus support on Bitcoin D, and it's just a flag in the config, and now it's on. It's so
amazing.
Yeah. There is so many things out there you can use besides this entire stack. Ride the Lightning is still a really great tool. I think people should check that out if they haven't. I know you love Zeus.
Oh, yeah. If you're going to use something to check in or like just, send some sats somewhere on Android, Zeus is great.
Yeah. The point I'm trying to make here is you're not replacing the dashboard with the agent. You're using the dashboard now to serve the human and monitor the agent's work. And then the API is being used on the back end from all these tools to give you a single interface. And it is really great, because as long as you have an eye on things, really managing a node is very, very simple. And now having an eye on things is easier than ever, really. Well, let's talk about backups really quick. So Nix Bitcoin does make backing up really easy. Do you want to talk about that briefly?
Well, it's just really good at setting things up so that you have clear delineation of like where secrets are kept, and then like where the stateful components of each of the daemons that you're running. Obviously with Bitcoin, you have like the chain state, but then for the various Lightning daemons, there's seed material, there's information on the Bitcoin wallets they have.
Your channel information.
And then all the stuff about channels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so this is where too, you might want to be pretty careful in terms of like, do you turn the node off when you do a backup? Does it have a API that you can trigger to make sure things are synced before you do a backup? Because what you don't want to do is be broadcasting false stuff to the network and then get penalized or have your channels forced closed.
Yeah.
And so that's where you also don't ever really want to just like blindly restore from a backup. and do investigate ways to, like, newer channel mechanisms exist that allow for better mechanisms of being able to restore a channel without having to take the risk of sort of doing a whole backup when there might have been advanced state that you weren't privy to.
I think maybe a takeaway for somebody too that's building a new node today, even if you're not in on the agent stuff, it's go minimal and clean. Build a clean node. Focus on surfacing APIs securely with scoped credentials. Payments can be something that are programmable now. You need to think about event-driven automation for certain things. Monitor everything that you can, and then keep backups and make sure those backups are outside any kind of blast radius of an agent or anything like that.
This is also where, like, using some more stuff, like you can go all the way to the base layer, but if you do choose to use something like LB Hub, you get some of the nice features, right? Like you get LNURL support out of the box, which can be a nice way for agents to receive payments. And there's also various ways to build this on top of the base nodes, but you can have like sub-wallet support. So
Yes.
You can maybe give a dedicated wallet to your agent.
I have done that. Yeah. So one of my agents, I have a dedicated Alby Hub sub-wallet, and it uses Nostr Wallet Connect. He's got a very limited balance with a budget he can spend, and it works great. He's got all the stuff he needs to connect to it, and Nostr Wallet Connect is so easy for them to understand.
And that's where, right, it's like, as is often sort of the boring case of security, if you can just restrict the ability of things and have defense in depth in multiple ways. So, even if it does go crazy into a loop spending stuff, if it only ever had a balance of X, that's all it can ever really damage.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you tip your agents or give them an allowance or something like that?
Maybe. What I was setting up was a complete workflow so that if the credit balance ever got too low and I wasn't around, they could auto top off
Like a buffer?
Yeah, their own credits using.
You can make them pay you when they waste the tokens.
I should. That's a good idea. So I think, what's been really freaking great is this stuff is ready to go in the era of agents. Like there's a lot of things that are not really agent ready that we're going to have to drag along and make work and build front ends to and all of that. But all of this is pretty much good to go. And so it's
Bitcoin is programmable money, right?
Yeah.
Like it's here already.
they've got APIs. Where there's not APIs, Alby's making MCPs. It's like it's really ready today for the agent workflow. And a lot of them are being very careful. A lot of the off the shelf stuff is mostly read-only or manages scoped payments and stuff like that. But I think the real power is in the Bolt D and Bolt CLI and getting your agent with the skill that will link to be able to manage liquidity a little bit, tell you about the channels on your node, send payments, sweep to liquid. That stuff is massive, and it's just the beginning. And that skill could use some improvement. It's not been fully tested. Just the workflows I've talked about have. And I'll post that. And if you've got a wild hair and you want to test against it and smoke test it and improve it, please submit the changes back up. I'll put it up on GitHub. But I have a question, gentlemen. Out there in the wild, listener, what would you like to do next with your node? Assuming you've noded up, are you planning to do anything, or are you just leaving it and letting it tick-tock next block? So boost in and tell us what you're planning to do with your node next. Well, coming up on the show, some clips I feel like playing, your boost, and a lot more. So you can support the show just by doing what you do. You want to buy some sats on River? The best way is River in the US, and I have a link in the show notes. Use that link, supports the show. Guess what? Any of these, I have a link in the show notes, and you use that link, it supports the show. Bitcoin Well, you're up there in Canada like our buddy Brent. The Bitcoin Well is an amazing automatic self-custody Bitcoin platform. They don't host the wallet. You do. It goes from your wallet to your wallet. The Bitcoin Company, you got sats burning a hole in your pocket, go spend it with the Bitcoin Company. All they do is Bitcoin from Lightning to a gift card in just seconds. Now, if you want to passively stack sats, maybe pay your bills and all that, Bolt Card. Audience loves it. Passively stack those sats. It's a great way to go. If it's time to get access to your Bitcoin liquidity without selling it, that's where Salt Lending comes in. Great platform, low minimums, and some wipeout protection, which you never know. Could be useful these days. Links to all of that in the show notes. Thanks to everybody who supports the show by doing what you do. Well, guess what? It is time for a few boosts.
And now it is time for Le Boost.
Get ready for this one, boys. Derivation Dingus comes in as our baller booster this week, breaking, I think, our total for last week in one single boost with 190,000 sats.
Wow.
You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. And nothing's gonna ever keep you down.
Superior ability
That's enough sats.
breeds superior ambition.
That's enough sats to actually buy some lobster, maybe.
Derivation writes, "Hi, Chris. I really appreciate everything you do and the work you put into the show. I hope this value makes it a little more worth your time. TWIB is one of the best Bitcoin shows on the internet.
Oh.
Let's get these numbers up, boys." Thank you, sir. Well done.
Make it so.
Appreciate you very much. You are our baller booster coming in right below there. Also, in the baller category, it is Adversary 17. Coming in with 98,899 sats. This was a great episode. I know you're going to try changing the format. I'm excited to see how that goes. I just wanted to give you some signal on the current format as I get a lot of value in each episode. So when you choose what to cut, please don't cut the state of the network section. I like hearing that each week. Oh, it's not a format change. I just wanted to have some fun for 1 week. Yeah, everybody, I should have said that maybe earlier in the show. People are going to get to 40 minutes of the show until they hear that.
Are you having fun?
Yeah, I'm having
good.
I'm having a fun.
You did it.
Will now commence.
Thank you, adversaries.
Kiwi Bitcoin Guide comes in with 49,999 sats.
Oh.
Hey, Chris, I want to echo some of the other comments here and say that TWIB is a highlight of my week and that the signal and value you provide is awesome. The fact that you live and breathe open source and live off value for value means the content is of the highest quality. It seems like all the other Bitcoin pods have either lost their values, sold out to advertisers, or just gone batshit crazy.
Oh.
So we need you here, buddy. I'd like to see more of the memberships for TWIB, and I think there must be some opportunities.
Wow. Thank you, Kiwi Bitcoin Guide. That's way too nice. I'm embarrassed, and I appreciate you very, very much.
Yes, hi.
Thank you very much for the boost and the value.
J Cubed boosted in 36,057 sats.
I like you. You're a hot ticket.
I got busy and I forgot to boost last week. Honestly, I'm a little tired of billionaires telling us what we're doing wrong. Feels like a lack of perspective on the common man at best, and manipulation at the worst. Maybe I'm getting a little paranoid.
Oh, I agree.
The traders love the vol.
I agree.
Is there any bacon on board
I
today?
do have some bacon somewhere around here. I always keep bacon nearby.
Do you like it crispy?
No, it wasn't bacon.
That's not bad.
I love it, though.
Either way, it's Bigfoot tonight.
I hope that does it for you, Jacob.
Oh, perfect.
Derivation Dingus is back with 21,420 sats. Just sending a bit more value from the old NixOS node, by the way. Keep it up. That's great. Well, that's very on topic, isn't it?
Indeed.
Thank you very much. Double ball.
Philippa A comes in with 21,221 sats.
Put some macaroni and cheese on there, too.
Hey, Chris, thanks for your consistency over time with the show. Even hearing your theme music calms my nerves and lifts my spirits each week. I totally understand you need to shake things up a bit and give yourself a boost.
Woo!
I've noticed you getting more and more upset over the BIP 110 situation
It does bother me a lot.
as the weeks go by,
These guys know I complain about
Oh,
it
yeah.
off air.
and not your usual calm self. Change is as good as a rest. Really looking forward to going to Cheat Code Bedford next week and
Oh.
seeing Lynn Alden et al. Do their thing.
Oh,
And then
they
there's
got cut
something we
off
could
there,
cut
yeah.
off. Yeah.
I would love to hear how that goes. I'd love to meet Lynn. Lynn is a rock star. Thank you very much, Philippa. Appreciate that.
Bitcoin is my 401k boosted 21,000 sats.
Oh my God, this drawer is filled with Fruit Loops.
Here's 21,000 sats to help keep my favorite Bitcoin podcast afloat. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Bitcoin is my 401k. I love that. That's great. I always love it every time. And it's true. It's true. Mac Jollers comes in with 21,000 sats.
21 gigawatts!
Gas for air after your hiatus. Content, sweet, pure signal. Yes, we're back. Hopefully people don't mind the episode 100 party a little early. But it's fun to hang out with the boys and talk nodes. Thank you very much, Mac Jollers. Appreciate the boost.
Boba comes in with 21,000 sats. Dig me some drum and bass. And then second message here. Bad take on BTC? Question mark. I think Mr. Wonderful's break the chain comment on Quantum FUD was embarrassingly bad, considering it was espoused from the position of informed authority at the
I
time.
hate it when they do that. I know.
And a third message, off topic, would converting out of Liquid into Lightning or back on chain automatically incur a taxable event? Not looking for advice, just a thought experiment. Tis the season.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? My understanding is no, because Liquid and Bitcoin are the same exact value. So there's no change in value there, right? But I could be wrong. But you're pegging to a particular price in Bitcoin. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure. I assume it's not a taxable event, and I like to believe that. Do you have any instinct either way?
What
Yeah,
you
it does-
believe doesn't necessarily mean.
yeah.
It does seem like, right, if the value is the same, then if you haven't converted that value,
Right.
Good question.
I could see if you're going to stablecoin and back, that being
For
a
sure,
taxable
yeah.
event. Right.
And probably maybe even between something like ETH and
But like,
BTC.
say you put 10,000 sats into Liquid 5 years ago, you would still get today's amount of 10,000 sats back. You would get the same. So you would always get the same amount of Bitcoin value back. It might just change in
Yeah, there's
in
no
Liquid.
ratio that differs.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think it's a taxable event, but I'm honestly not. And if anybody out there has a better understanding, of course, not tax advice, just your opinion, please do boost it and let us know. I'd love to know.
Moonanite sent in just slightly over 9,000 sats with 9,001 sats. It's a shame that the sat flow into the show is so low. I've been getting a ton of value out of your podcast, as you seem to be one of the very few Bitcoin podcasters that has their head screwed on straight. Grown pretty tired of the podcasts that spend all day interviewing weird culture war people and financial dudes that have never had a real job. And it shows in how they view the economy. That ranting aside, I really appreciate the work you're doing with Twib, so I'll be bumping up my sats.
Thanks, Moonanite. I really appreciate that. I'm not saying I agree, but I really appreciate that boost. Hey there, Gene Bean's back, 6,492 sats.
Well, let's hear it, good buddy.
He's blown away at the $3 billion in expenses and interest today. He says your description of just how bad Luke is trying to centralize political power over Bitcoin could be explained by him disliking the key thing that makes Bitcoin different from Ethereum. No CEO. Maybe he wants to make Ocean the CEO of the network with the biggest market cap. Yeah, I know I'm wearing my tinfoil hat here. And he says, how is that JB mining pool coming along? I think Adversaries was working on that when you were out there with him, right?
Yeah, and didn't you have a little miner on the...
I'm a bottleneck.
On the
We all
soundboard there
are.
for a little while?
I'm such a bottleneck. I am such a bottleneck to this stuff. It's horrible. I don't know. I think Adversaries has made some really good progress. So I got to sit down. Adversary 17 and I are going to have a chat, and we'll figure it out at some point. I am the bottleneck there. And just because things
Get
are so
lower on
busy.
it.
I don't know when things are, maybe in 4 or 5 years when my kids are all grown up, maybe, I don't know. I just
It'll be
don't.
too late.
I just don't know. Thank you, Gene. And when I do know, I think you're going to be the first person I tell.
User 888 comes in with 2,000 sats. Thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you, User 88. Appreciate you.
Cosnow also came in with 2,500 sats, but no message found.
OB came in with 2,000 sats. No message found.
Make it so.
And Ace Ackerman came in with Rodux. That's 2,222 sats. Keep Twib alive and healthy with a boost. Boost!
JPEG81 sends in 4,200 sats.
Hey.
No message on the first one, but thank you. This is my favorite Bitcoin podcast.
Aw. Thank you very much. Okay, Bug-Eyed Stormtrooper's here, and he's got 2,042 sats. I feel like I got something for him, right? I got something.
Mr. Boston with happiness seeing you again.
This is the way.
Hello there. Suppose that BIP 110 does pull it off and it goes bad. Is it possible for the community to roll it back, or is it a one-way street? I don't know if I have an answer. I mean, it depends on how far it goes and and how much, mining power they would actually be
Right,
able to get.
The length of diverged history
That's
is
it.
going
That's
to
it.
increase the pain over time, right?
That's it. Yeah. And now we just don't know really till it happens, I suppose, and how far it gets. It's one of the things I just don't even want to have to worry about. I really,
Yeah.
like Philippa mentioned, it does bother me. It really bothers me. It bothers me because I've been following this for nearly 16 years. It's pretty important to me, and I think it's pretty important to the world. And it's crazy.
I have a box of soap here if you need
Thank
it.
you. Yeah. All right, let me wrap us up. Paranoid Coder comes in with 2,000 sats. I mentioned Spark on these boosts a couple times now, and I just noticed that Primal recently switched from using Lightning via embedded Spark wallet to a custodial Spark wallet that auto swaps to Lightning. Pretty cool to see this technology actually get adopted. Big Primal update. Primal being the Nostr front end. Primal 3.0 is huge. Yeah, and they redid the wallet stuff. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. I did see some people talking about Spark custodial services being not ideal for privacy, but what custodial service is.
Well, I think this one was self-custodial.
Yeah, exactly. So that seems like a much better route. Very cool. And I have Primal 3 installed. I'm going to start playing around with the wallet feature. But thank you for that boost. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody else who streamed sats. You collectively stacked 71,688 sats for the show. Not too bad at all.
BOOST.
When you combine that with our boosters, we had great support this episode. We stacked 616,555 sats. If you'd like to support the show, a boost is a great way to do it. Fountain FM makes it really easy. There's also a membership option in Fountain as well as Jupiter.party if you want to support the entire network. No advertiser, just do it for the love of it. And of course, for the long-term stacking of those sats, to support the show by sending a boost. All right, so the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to put together what the hell's going on with the billionaires. Why is Ray Dalio and Chamath and others coming out who were pro-Bitcoin now saying Bitcoin's it's a loser, it's no good? And I knew there must be some sort of shitcoin play in the works, and I believe, boys, I have put it together.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and it's
Juicy?
a doozy.
I'll get my wallet ready.
To be honest with you, it deserves more of my time to fully dig into it because this is a big one. And I have just begun to scratch the surface, and it's really something. So let's see, where do we even start? The token that we're going to talk about today is called Tau. And again, if you're listening, you know more about this, please boost in a correction. But Tau is in a league of its own because it's an AI play.
Things that has really stuck out to me is this intersection of Bitcoin and crypto and artificial intelligence. And it feels like there's a lot of folks that are talking about like agentic payments and stablecoins at Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. I think you see some other areas where that intersection of Bitcoin and AI are going to show up. Talk about what you're excited about there, what you guys are spending time on.
Yeah, I think most of it is kind of bullshit in that, a lot of projects are saying, hey, we're AI. There is clearly, I think, a very big opportunity around the convergence of crypto and AI.
This is Billy. That's great. This is Barry Silbert. He's very famous. You ought to look up Barry and why he owes people a lot of money.
And there's certainly, we're obviously seeing it with on the infrastructure side with compute and Bitcoin miners diversifying into or pivoting into AI. But I do think that the ability to incentivize contribution, the ability to incentivize stakeholders.
The other word they use is to create a marketplace for GPUs.
In unique ways around AI is super exciting. And so we got involved in something called Bitensor, which is a decentralized open source protocol, just like Bitcoin.
Just like Bitcoin, guys.
I bet it's 1-to-1.
But instead of incentivizing security of the network, it incentivizes people to essentially kind of compete and try to solve complex problems of the world. So
instead of doing silly SHA-256 throwaway math or whatever, just stuff that's just burning stupid electricity, just dumb mining, this is the same thing as Bitcoin, but it's solving AI problems.
Bitensor is comprised of over 100 of these different subnets. These subnets are competitions where people are trying to predict sport outcomes or discover drugs or incentivizing compute or storage. Super, super interesting intersection of kind of crypto AI. There's a few other projects that I think are interesting, but this definitely is the first one that has reached escape velocity.
And the token that the entire network operates on is this Tau token. And yeah, go ahead.
Wait, well, he said solve the world's biggest problems, and then the first example he came up with was baseball betting?
Yeah. Well, that's, that's a big problem.
If you're losing a lot of money on your
That's
baseball
right.
bets.
Well,
Right.
that is a problem, I guess.
I also, are we, we have like DevSecOps already. Are we doing that? Is it crypto AI now? It's just one word, crypto AI?
I guess so, yeah. Agentic crypto AI, you can make it 3.
Good point.
But it's funny you caught that, Brent, because, the Tau token and the subnet, which sometimes there are individual subnet tokens, don't worry, they're coming to Robinhood and Coinbase.
How does one buy that?
By the way, this is Jason Calacanis, who has become cheerleader number 1 for Tau.
Because Tau is listed on Robinhood and Coinbase now, or not yet?
Tau itself is on Coinbase. I'm not sure if it's on Robinhood.
It's not. I don't think it is. I've looked for it before.
But Tau you can get at Coinbase. I've actually gotten it on Coinbase, so I know it's on there.
So it's in full shill mode right now. It's going to be it's on Coinbase. It's going to be on Robinhood. Let's talk about the shilling a little bit in a minute. I don't want to get there just yet because I want to still talk about how they're really kind of trying to compare it to Bitcoin.
You could get like 50K a day, this mining contestonomic thing that makes mining programmable.
They're already making history.
They spent less than $1 million.
They release a lot of hype videos on social media.
Compared to Anthropic, which has spent billions.
Most of them are probably going to be bad startups. Probably.
It's the most important thing that's happened in crypto since Ethereum.
People are using this stuff.
And Earth's largest supercomputer in aggregate, it 3x'd the efficiency and speed. So if you can sell the same thing for 90% off.
Do you think that BitTensor could outgrow the big giants?
Suddenly I was competitive and suddenly I could earn.
You saw these hype videos come out there all the time. These 3xing and 90%ing of what? There's no base number, no baseline ever established.
How convenient.
And one of the reasons why they consider it a lot like Bitcoin, because one of the things they've done like Bitcoin is they have built in a halving mechanism. In fact, it's halving. Tau just halved actually, and it is up as a result. This is one of the evangelists kind of explaining.
Well, don't forget, Tau BitTensor is built very similar to Bitcoin.
Of course.
21 million fixed supply of 21 million tokens, a halving every 4 years.
You could just see those two things alone, how many mids are going to get completely sucked in just by those two things alone.
The only thing that's different is BitTensor.
Besides the fact that it has a CEO, besides the fact that Barry's behind it and that Barry's the organizer of it and that he's selling early tokens to guys like Chamath and Ray Dalio. Besides that, the only difference is
21 million fixed supply of 21 million tokens, a halving every 4 years. The only thing that's different is BitTensor, again, the Tau is the token, BitTensor abstracted away the incentive mechanism. So it's a very similar idea. Let's give incentives for the people who help us. So Bitcoin does that, gives incentives to the miners who validate transactions.
Yeah, it's called the scarcest asset on earth. Pretty good incentive. Okay.
But BitTensor gives incentives to people who come up with better and better AI models or whatever the problems are that the subnets are trying to solve. So it really is. It's like the Bitcoin of entrepreneurship.
What do you think so far? What is your impression?
How do you validate that? Like, it's such a subjective idea. He's saying someone who comes out with a better AI model.
Well, so you have to be in on the idea that AI is the most revolutionary technology ever, and the most scarcest, precious thing we have is electricity and GPUs. This is something that Chamath on the All In show has been positioning. They had NVIDIA CEO on recently, and they talked about this.
2 days ago, you may not have seen this because you were busy on stage, but there was a training run that happened in this crypto project called BitTensor. Subnet 3, they managed to train a 4 billion parameter llama model, totally distributed, with a bunch of people contributing excess compute. But they were able to do it statefully and manage a training run, which I thought was like a pretty crazy technical accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because it's like random people and each person gets a little share.
Our modern version of folding at home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the end state of open source? Do you see this decentralization of architecture as well and decentralization of compute to support open weights and a totally open source approach to making sure AI is broadly available to everyone?
I believe we fundamentally need models as a first-class product, proprietary product, as well as models as open source. These two things are not A or B, it's A and B. There's no question about it. And the reason for that is because models is a technology, not a...
Let's be clear what's happening here. Chamath is using this moment with the world's most famous CEO to pump his shitcoin. And Jensen's doing probably the best he can to give a sort of generic answer here. But Chamath is using this moment, maybe one of the largest moments for the show in this year, to pump a shitcoin.
Yeah, right. Maybe the idea of distributed training of models, that can be interesting. The idea of figuring out a way to exchange value to pay for that, sure. Yeah. None of that seems to necessitate this exact technology.
No. Also, his buddy Jason Calacanis has been on X telling people to sell their Bitcoin and buy Tau. And now he's turned his podcast, This Week in Startups, basically into a Tau advocacy podcast. Today's episode's all about it. Here's a moment from last week's episode.
And I don't give financial advice, but if anybody's listening and you had a $100 that you were going to spend on some margaritas, I'm going to say maybe drink some water Friday night, get some filtered water, tap water, whatever, have a nice tea. Put the other $99 into just buying a little Tau for yourself. Why not?
Not financial advice.
I think I'll take a margarita and some Bitcoin, please.
It's starting to sound like an LML.
Yeah, it is.
Multi-level marketing.
Yeah, well, in a way it is.
Ugh,
These guys kind of have a history of doing this. I've played clips before on the show where they bragged about they got access to Solana. And so they get some sort of stake in like a company, and then they get the tokens. And the stake in the company is locked up, but the tokens aren't. And so they get to just dump on retail all they want. And I had a clip I've played, I don't know if I could find it, but I had a clip I played maybe last year that was them just having a good old laugh. In fact, I bet you I could find it here.
YouTube, they're inside of Twitter. And what these folks would do...
Okay, so this is the first part of the clip where Chamath, who is now, by the way, pumping Tau, tells you how the scam works. This is from a couple of years ago.
YouTube, they're inside of Twitter. And what these folks would do, and we talked about this, the game that they played was they would get a team, they would create a token, they would also buy equity at some crazy valuation. The equity was locked up, but the tokens were not. And then they would put them on an exchange and sell them to unsuspecting people, and they would be able to dump these tokens. And if you look inside of that trend, what you're going to see, and Brian just mentioned this, those were the sale of securities, except it was done in a completely unregulated way. So if the SEC is really, and the DOJ is really going to take this FTT token issue seriously and what happened to FTX,
which they haven't. This was back after FTX crashed, and everybody's like, something's got to change.
Gosh. They're going to start to look at a bunch of other tokens and token sales, and you're going to end up looking at some very well-known venture firms inside of Silicon Valley.
Including his own. Then, about 10 months after that, this next clip comes in. So I saved this for us because I thought this might come back up. This is later on the All In podcast.
They're heavy.
Good Lord.
They're heavy, dragging you down.
That's where you're hiding all that Solana in your fucking, under your eyes.
You better clear that Solana position. What's your lockup, 24 months?
Fuck no, he's trying to sell it to me on text message.
Yeah, of course he is.
We're negotiating discounts.
I just had the founder on the
you're
pod.
fucking the whole thing up.
Bro, you don't think...
I'm hodling.
You think I buy hundreds of millions of dollars of anything without a discount? Everything is a discount.
Everything's discounted. You want to clear that position in an LLC?
Are you saying I got $1 billion of Solana?
No, bro, I'm saying I have one, but I bought it at a discount.
But you're holding, correct?
Ish.
Ish. Okay. Yeah, me too.
Ish. Well, I mean.
All right, let's wrap up with the state of the network. It's block height 942,217. The price is currently $71,210 to $1 US. You know what I'm saying. It is what it is. It is sats per dollar is 1,404. I like that. I got distracted by the 404 and lost my train of thought.
Did you mean fiat fund coupons?
Yes, thank you. Now we are still down 43.5% from our all-time high, which was now a long, cold 170 days ago, if you can believe it, October 6, 2025. Our retarget date is set for April 4th, 2025, with an estimated difficulty upward adjustment of 3.1%. Reachable Bitcoin nodes on the network continues to decline at 23,957. Hopefully we'll change that a little bit, this network, and get you firing up a node. Node up, everybody. And of course, whenever the network fees are low, it's also a great time to experiment with Lightning. So take advantage of that. Looking at everything, though, we're moving right along. Bitcoin Core 30 continues to get a bit more adoption. And Bitcoin's looking better and better when priced in gold this week. So that's a nice positive to see. And the state of the network is strong. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And boys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
It's nice to change it up a little bit. I think it was just the boost I needed. We'll be back to the regular format. I got so many clips and so many things to talk about. But we'll have some very useful links at thisweekinbitcoin.show. So go check that for some of the resources. And let me know what you thought about some of the information and what other bits of node management you'd like to be heard covered in the future. I don't know what it might be. There's a lot of topics. So we could use your suggestions. Send us a boost with what you'd like us to explore in the future. I'm sure we could probably cover it again.
And if you do make a node, boost in and open a channel.
You're right. Dude, if you set up a node this week and you got anywhere close to what we talked about, that's next level stuff. I mean, what we talked about today is pretty advanced. If you get close to it, you're doing really, really great. So you got to let us know. You got to send it in if that happens. All right, that wraps it up for us. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of This Week in Bitcoin. See you next week.